I am in a very good mood, guys. What do I say? I'm really excited. Thank you all for joining. Looks like a bunch of people have already logged in and we've already chatted for 2 minutes, and that's what I said, 2 minutes. So we'll get this thing going. I thank you all for joining. This is a ControlUp Community Meetup, and I didn't bore you with the PowerPoint because why? I'll put that on afterwards. And I wanted to jump straight to Jed, and we have it's been a while. I don't know how long it's been since we've had you on, a year and a half, maybe a year, something like
Feels like a
that.
lifetime.
It does feel like a lifetime, does it? Is that a good or a bad thing? That's my first question. No. So it's been a while since we've had him on, and we wanted to bring him on. With the IT is changing so quick nowadays, and that's one of the topics we're going to discuss. And I think the last time we brought you on, we were just introducing DEX and talking about DEX, right? And the world's continuing to evolve quickly, exponentially, as I like to say. So I wanted to bring Jed back on and have him sort of bring us up to date on what's going on with ControlUp and ask him about DEX and autonomous IT. I think all roads lead to autonomous. I was at E2E a few months ago, and so we all looked at each other and said, everyone here is doing some form of autonomous. And it's true. So we're going to discuss that a bit and yeah, just see what's new. Jed, thanks for taking the time to do this. Last of all, if you have any questions, the Q&A piece down below, put them in there. We do have chat. I probably won't be looking at chat because I'll try my hardest to pay attention to while watching your questions. Hey, Ruben. And Ruben said, we've already have questions, Chad. So, but let's
Really?
get to
We already
mine.
have questions.
Ruben has submitted 2 questions. So, Ruben, we're going to save
Wow.
those for a little bit.
Okay.
So, anybody else ask? No, no. Let's get going. I gotta watch myself. I'm too silly today. I don't know what got me silly today.
Well, I just want to start by saying thank you to everybody that joined and thanks for being part of the Control Up community. We very much value and invest in this community and get like lots of good feedback from all of you, and hopefully you get a lot of value from being part of it. I know we're trying to do our best to keep you all up to speed on all the things we're doing and the innovation and how to get the most out of our product. So yeah,
You
thank
got
you
it.
for being part of it.
Well, thank you, Jed. I think we have a unique community. We started that off at IGEL and now continuing here at Control Up. And the idea is really it's to provide you resources and access. We know you're busy people, you're coming and going, right? So we give you a place to learn what's new, what's coming soon, to ask us anything, right? Like today, you can ask Jed anything, but also access to the people. And inside the community is almost every one of our product managers. Yoni's in there every single day. He's our co-founder, and today we're giving you access to Jed. So it's really about resources and access to make you, more informed, happier customer, partner, or prospect, right? Or just someone who wants to hang out with us and learn a bit. So that's cool too.
Who doesn't want to
So
hang out
Jed,
with Doug Brown?
well, a lot of people, Jed, on a good day, a lot of people. So anyway, yeah, let's get going. Jed, for my first question, you've really been in the EUC space and the IT space for quite a while, right? You started off with the channel, working in with the customers, working with ISVs and all that, all from that side of the table. You moved over to AppSense, then IGEL. You became CEO at IGEL, and now you're running Control Up. Comparing IT teams day 5 years ago, what's to today? What's generally changed? What stayed the same? And what do you see that's still broken that we just sort of normalize, we just sort of put up with and assume, well, that's the way it always is?
Yeah, well, great question. I actually started my career 30 years ago in end user compute. So I've been in this sort of, edge computing. And for 30 years, I was on site at Cisco 30 years ago when they were 6 buildings and they were buying millions of dollars worth of IT equipment. And we had 150 people on site moving computers around and refreshing them every 12 months. It was an interesting moment to drop in the middle of the 90s or early 90s to this end user compute. And I guess I would say the main thing that's changed over the last 5 years, especially, is just complexity, right? More devices, more applications, the speed at which technology is arriving on the daily basis, right? And the power of the technology is also exponential. So yeah, I think IT teams 5 years ago are struggling to kind of just keep up with this, right? And they're spending a lot of time trying to cycle through what we see, even today is they're cycling through this complexity, right? There lot of teams are have a lot of good telemetry, but they're still waiting for something to break, and then they're using these tools to pull the data and usually aggregate data across a wide variety of tools. I mean, I think I was in a room with CIOs a few months ago, and I asked, like, the average Windows image has 15 plus agents sitting on it. Most of those agents are, some are for security, but a lot of them are there to pull data and help when things go wrong, right? And help teams decide what happened, and then they have to go fix it manually, right? And so I think there's been over the last 30 years of my career, there's been sort of a normalization of that firefighting model, if you will, right? We've gotten better fire extinguishers and much better observability, but we've kind of normalized this kind of hamster wheel of tickets and outages and troubleshooting. And I think that's where I get super excited when I wake up today and I think about what's in front of us with AI being able to like identify patterns in a way that humans haven't been able to do as effectively, right? And resolve a lot of these routine problems before they manifest. So that's kind of like where I think the big change is complexity, and IT really hasn't changed even from the 30 years ago when I, started my career. The model hasn't changed that dramatically. And I think that's where I get excited because I think the tech has reached a point where in the next 24 months, it's going to radically change, and it's going to give companies that embrace this new tech like huge differentiation, cost savings that will be remarkable inside of an organization.
I agree with you, and to sort of summarize what you said is really for forever we've really just sort of been reactive, and we're okay with being reactive, right? We've been quicker at being reactive. Val King said something great. I just loved it. He said, "Over the years, we've just got better at saying we're sorry." Right? Which I love that, right? We haven't really solved much. We just got quicker and better at saying we're sorry, and then we go and fix it. So that's really what you're saying. And the future brings more autonomous, which we're talking about. We're going to talk about. I love it. I love it. So the DEX chapter. Let's move over to DEX a little bit. Right. So ControlUp was named the leader in the DEX Magic Quadrant for the third year consecutive year. And in that line, you've gone on record as saying, "quote the DEX is the foundation, not the finish line." So to be honest with our audience and anyone to our audience here, did the industry oversell DEX? Because a lot of people bought DEX as a tool, got beautiful dashboards, but still have the same number of tickets. Why? And is this true? Does that make
Um,
sense?
yeah, definitely. I mean, I think DEX, it's a very sexy acronym. We live in a abundance and a sea of three-letter acronyms, and DEX kind of did stand out. And as a CEO of a software company, it is kind of a dream, especially for one that's trying to make a play into the enterprise from a pretty commercial, kind of product-led story, to have the tailwind of a Magic Quadrant because it's kind of like no one got fired for buying Cisco or IBM. No one gets fired for buying, companies in the upper right quadrant. So that's been a gift, right? To have this and have our name kind of steadily moving up into the right. And for probably the biggest thing that was helpful there was that, like, Gartner has an event, the digital workspace event, and they actually, 4,000 people show up to these events in, different parts of the world, and they stand up and tell these, people that are, our customers, um, that if you don't put one of these, platforms in place, you're probably going to lose your job by 2028. half the people in the room, in fact, is what they predicted, right? Half of you will lose your job. So that did get a lot of lean in. What I would probably say most importantly about DEX is that DEX is more of like an actual methodology and practice than just a tool, right? It's like it's this idea of bringing a lot of or parts of the organization together, not just IT silos, but the entire organization around better telemetry, better ability to improve the employee experience. And so, yeah, it spans across HR and IT, and goes into the executive wing. Yes, there's this foundational technology platform. But I think that is the biggest gift in a way, right? Is that it sort of put everyone on notice that, hey, there's a better way to do this. The technology is coming, and you need to get started on this DEX journey. They have this maturity model that they really push people to think about, and they did a good job of kind of from a consultative framework, show people like, yeah, the first couple phases are very much getting the tools in place, getting some DEX operational efficiencies and automations in place. But yeah, oversold. I don't know if that's the word I would use. I think, visibility alone was never meant to be the destination, right? And I do think one of the challenges with DEX is two things from my perspective. One, no one could define it the same way. I think we have lots of people on this call, and if you ask them to tell what is DEX, they would give you very different answers. And I saw that myself with CIOs in a room. So that was part of the challenge, because it's pretty expansive, and it also didn't translate very well into the small companies, right? Like, would ControlUp buy a DEX platform? Would a company of 5,000 people buy a DEX platform? They're typically more aimed at like buying specific point problems. And you can actually see this borne out with the TeamViewer buying 1E. They had 600,000 customers, many of which were small to medium sized customers. And the DEX solution did not translate very well in the first couple of years of that acquisition to the small and medium sized customers. So that's kind of how I see it. It's DEX is a bit oppressive in its full embodiment to the mid-sized customer who's trying to keep the lights on.
Interesting, interesting. I like the it's the foundation, not a finish line, right? It's a method, and you just said it's a methodology, right? It's we need to pay attention to these things. We need to understand. It's a feature, right, within the bigger platform.
Yeah, well, you're the guy who wrote methodology in a box, so you kind of get this, right? And I do think that is the gift of DEX, is that it turned everyone's mind on to the idea that visibility without action is just another dashboard, and that there's this sort of framework. It's like Maslow's hierarchy, right? Like you can get to this sort of place where, yeah, the world is a better for the employees. One of the things I also love about DEX is that you think about customer experience, right? It's like everyone knows what that is. CX, there's, a lot of emphasis put on like, hey, let's take care of our customers, right? We have 59 people in our CX organization, right? We want to make sure part of your community is aimed at helping that, right?
We're part of
And one
CX,
of the
baby.
things that's probably the most profound that I think is not talked about enough is like the reason why you have DEX is to put the same weight on making sure that the employee, who is interfacing with the customer and in some way is building or servicing the customer, are they getting the right tools and the right experience to deliver to do their job effectively, right? And so that especially when people are working on any kind of device anywhere in the world, that's the gift of DEX in a way, right? Is just sort of like lighting the world up in the C-suite specifically, that hey, you can't ignore the score of the experience that you're delivering to these employees.
I think that, I mean, you're talking to an old Citrix guy, right? And we always think, I think that if you talk to any of us, it's always about experience. We're providing an experience, right? We need to provide a great experience because the end user at the end of the day, like you mentioned earlier, IT hasn't really changed a lot, right? Because what is the goal of IT is to facilitate that user to do the best work of their career, the best work of that week, the best work of that hour, right? That's our
Yeah.
goal. Dex was a way to measure that in some ways, right? So is AI sort of the secret sauce to to DEX where without getting too far into the AI discussion, but nice
I mean,
segue
I
in
guess
this
one thing
ways?
that's interesting, I started in August of 2023, and I think we all know what happened in November of 2022. And I remember, sitting on the VMware Explorer with the SOF and the Cube and, having a conversation about, AI. And at the time, Asaf, as the founder of the company, was a little bit like, didn't believe that AI, he thought AI was, going to be too sloppy and too expensive. And, and I remember having kind of some interesting conversations with him at that time, right? About, the intersection of we have this huge data set, right? Terabytes of data and, some of the larger customers. Don't you think at some point intersecting this with AI is going to change everything? And, I think it took about 6 months, 8 months from that, from my start to sort of start to see, okay, wow, this will radically change IT for us, right? And the fact that we have this sort of real-time data set, and I think for those of you on this call that like have known ControlUp for a long time, one of the things that also drew me to the company was, okay, we're entering into this era of AI where the gold is data. And we solved one of the hardest problems on the edge early on, right? Using data and a 3 second real time kind of telemetry. If you remember when I first started, Doug, I came out with these shirts that said "Keep it real," because even our competitors would tell me like that is your sweet spot, right? The fact that we were trying to solve for Citrix, this wobbly, hard to you know hard to understand where the issue was, without like a really wide data set and a very fast clock speed. That origin story ends up being very important as we move into this era where we now are calling it Pulse AI, right? Where we're intersecting that data set with really strong foundational models, right, that get better every day, and can see patterns that, in that data that we couldn't, right? And when I first got here, I'll give you just kind of a staggering example. When I first got here, yeah, I think hopefully most of the people on your that are listening know about our automated actions, right? Our automated actions are very powerful. They're typically derived from somebody, reverse engineering a trouble ticket queue, seeing the patterns that can be sort of automated out, right? And for a long time, we had sort of a baseline of around 10 million automated actions that were running on our platform every week. In the last 100 days, that 10 million has soared to 52 million. And it's
Wow.
entirely because of the AI assistant being able to like, within seconds go through the huge data set, identify the patterns, and also source the script to inject into the automated actions platform. And so that's gone to 52 million, right? Like in 100
Okay.
days. So like over a 400% increase. And so like that is where I think this is, this is just one component, but AI intersecting with our data and then also being able to pull our other sources of data into our data because it's I think that's the other interesting thing, right? Replace sort of data lake with AI orchestration, if you will, right? But this idea of being able to take what we used to build these big data lakes, right? We can now do that in real time, and we can intersect it with AI and we can do profound things with it. So that is again why I get super excited to wake up every day, right? Is that I think in the next 24 months, how we think about running traditional IT is going to really change.
Well, I have a question on that. So I love what you just said. I think that the people that have data, they're gonna they're gonna win with AI. But it's not just having data; it's about having accurate data, right? And that means current data. So if you throw a bunch of data at an LMM and it's data from your environment that's 5 years old, and then data from your environment that's today, LLM doesn't know any difference, right?
Right.
It takes it all as so the ability to serve up real time data and then have lots of that. That's where the power really
Yeah,
starts going
I
with
agree with
AI.
you 100%. AI is only as good as the information it receives, right? The old saying, garbage in, garbage out.
You bet.
Um, and AI is really good at telling you like, oh yeah, this is the answer, right? Based on the data you've just given it.
Yeah, exactly
And
right.
so, yeah,
Exactly right.
humans can actually compensate for incomplete information more effectively than AI can, right?
1,000%. We spot that. We look at that and say, hey, wait a second, this isn't right. Where AI just takes it as gospel,
Yeah, they can
right?
confidently
And
make the wrong decision with bad data.
100%, 100%. Yeah, we won't go down that path. You've
Yeah.
alluded to Pulse AI a few times already, and this is we're ready for the. Let's get into this one. So, everyone says AI is changing IT. You just said AI is changing IT. So let's cut through. Let's cut through this. What right? So what's generally different now versus the automation we've had for decades? And tie that to the Unipath, our AI Pulse AI acquisition. That you said this acquisition lets ControlUp quote resolve issues directly and in real time, often without involving the help desk. End quote. So, what does this actually unlock? And are you impressed? I pulled out real quotes.
I actually have to say this is the first interview where it feels like you really did your homework or some AI agent did.
We'll
So
never know.
somebody's helping you. I know it. You're a little pocket man. Um, which is great. Well, I mean, I guess what I would tell you is that I think traditional like automation depended on IT kind of anticipating the scenarios, right? And defining the rule, which is kind of what I would just described about the automated actions, right? Like we could see, oh, this is happening over and over again. Let's define a rule, and then we'll just intersect it every time we see it, right? This pattern. But I think what's interesting about what AI is doing today is it can understand what's happening right now, right? It can determine the most likely root cause, and it can choose that appropriate
Only if
remediation.
you have
What?
only if you have data, though, Dad.
Right.
Your LMM is only as smart. You have to be pumping that other real time data, otherwise it doesn't matter.
Exactly. But the leap here is like, hopefully you guys can see me. I see you're frozen for a second. But I think the leap is moving from like a scripted response to a contextual response that is in real time, right? That can drive a decision. I watched a documentary a couple weeks ago on like how the trading of stocks has morphed over the last 50 years, right? You used to call
Hmm.
up your broker and talk to them and they would send you a certificate and you would get it in the mail or whatever, right? And now almost every trade happens electronically in a data center driven by algorithms, right? I saw that, I thought, wow, that's actually a parallel metaphor to what's happening in the world of IT, right? Like I think we're going to get to a point where most of the troubleshooting and the remediation will happen, in a data center, with one of these platforms that have really, incredible access and pattern recognition, uh, to take these actions, right? So yeah, instead of simply telling you a VPN failed, right? The platform's going to be able to see that issue, determine what the root cause is, have very strong, data to back up executing a remediation, and then they'll be able to confirm directly with the user that they're productive again, and then that becomes an artifact for future challenges that come up, right? And I think the idea of it, the interesting thing about DEX, by the way, I encourage everyone who hasn't like cracked open the latest Magic Quadrant to like go look at it. The most fascinating and exciting thing for me when I joined this company was to stare at that and realize that the competitive landscape that's in that quadrant consists of a hardware player with HPI, legacy UEM players with like Avanti and Omnisa, a cyber player with Tanium, ITSM player, the leading ITSM player with ServiceNow, and so like when you look at that, you realize like where this is all headed is why do you have ServiceNow in this, right? The ticketing world is gonna go away, right? Like no one wants to open a ticket. No one wants to take notes inside a ticket and document it, and it's a sort of fool's errand in a way, right? With the tech that's available to us. So that's one of the interesting things, right? We have great partnerships with ServiceNow. We have great partnerships with Freshworks, and I think that's an interesting sort of outcome of DEX, right? Is this blurring of UEM, RMM, all these acronyms, right? ITSM, endpoint management.
Cool.
Um, but it all comes back to data, Doug.
It's all about data. It's always about data. So I love your thing that nobody wants to open up a ticket. When I first started building the communities, I started reading all these community books and whatever. And there was one slide I came upon that I absolutely loved. I've presented it many times to folks that people would rather, a survey of thousands and thousands of people would rather clean their toilet for 30 minutes than open a support ticket. That is a really interesting. That is, yeah, is that crazy or what?
Heard
It
that
was,
one,
it
but
was,
that makes
yeah, it
sense.
was, you've never, I've told you this many times. You're not paying attention.
Yeah, well,
I'm in
I
trouble,
think
man.
yeah, I mean, I guess everybody can relate to like the sort of like angst that happens when things don't tech doesn't work right. We're so dependent on this edge endpoint. I think it's going to become even more pervasive, like how clearly the digital, experience on the endpoint is with, agents running and the edge is suddenly very important again in the I think we it was
I think
it
it's
was
always been
important early
important.
on, right? In the PC world, and everybody could, oh, I can open up, I can install this application, and I can, do work. In the early days of Steve Jobs and Bill Gates of the PC on every desk, right? But now we're headed to a place where it's like not only a PC, but a fleet of agents doing real work. And so, yeah, the edge and that digital fabric of the integrity of it on the edge is going to be that much more important, right? If you have one person doing 10 people's work, the ability for that edge experience to be flawless is going to be quite important. And I
Yeah,
think
absolutely.
I know everyone on this call can relate to like the moments in your career where the things don't work right. It's like, it's such a high anxiety thing, right? When you dial into a call and you have to, your microphone doesn't work or whatever, right? It just it's probably some of the most, high stress moments of your day if tech isn't working right. And
Oh,
yet, to
my
your
most
point,
high.
you don't want to open a ticket. The last thing you want to do is go talk to some guy who's going to ask you 50 questions and another person that's going to ask you the same 50 questions and then
Well,
play
this
ping
is
pong
true.
to try to solve it.
Oh, they're gonna have you rebooted. And the most stressful
Right.
part of my day is when I told you you don't listen to me. But anyway, so so this one you touched on this question so much, so this might be a pretty easy answer. But ControlUp's bet has always been on high resolution, real time telemetry. Why does data resolution matter more in the AI world than in the human driven one? If every vendor eventually has agents, does the whole game move to the data layer underneath them?
Well, I think we did talk about this a minute ago, right?
We
AI is
did.
just
We
only
did.
as good as the information it receives. But if some of our competitors are talking about, hey, we batch up data, right? Every 5 minutes, we're giving we're and they do it for COGS reasons, right? Like I understand why our COGS are very high, especially at highly scaled out customers, right? But you know, telemetry every 5 minutes in batches doesn't give you the granular detail you need and AI needs to make a really profoundly sharp decision, right, on how to fix something. So yeah, like we said before, AI can confidently make the wrong decision. So I actually don't think AI will the winners in AI in our space are going to be ones that have the biggest models. They're going to be the ones that actually are open to all the adjustments that are happening on these frontier models. But they're going to have the highest quality, highest resolution, ability to absorb real-time operational data into a surface that these AI models can interact with, right? And then the ability to turn that pattern recognition into a safe action, right? And have the right guardrails, the right audit trails. We have thought really hard. I spent a lot of time with our marketing team and our product leadership. Like, what is our sort of tagline? Well, who are we, right? And so this is literally in the last 2 weeks. We've come up with these, hey, we're going to be the AI platform for IT operations. This is going to get bigger than just the workplace. and what sets us different? What are the kind of like the three things that make that possible? Well, the very first one is real-time data. The second one is intelligent decisions, right, that are you can make with that. And then the third is the automated action. So like that's kind of how we're encapsulating the control up story today.
I love it. I mean, the control story, in my opinion, and I have nothing to do with the control story. I don't even know the whole story, right? But it's the answer to this question, and that is, at the end of the day, it's about the most current, up-to-date data that you can get, real-time data. If you have that, and you're connecting all these pieces together, then you can take actionable, real. You can solve the problem. If not, you're going to see.
Yeah.
Good luck, right?
I guess one of
Maybe
the
that
other gifts
5-year-old
of
answer
DEX,
works.
by the we didn't mention before, but I think, and it's sometimes overlooked, so I'll point it out here, is that one of the gifts that we have that some of the other companies that are entering into this space don't have is that we figured out how to take data and contextualize it around a single human, right? Because of the DEX scoring and the sort of idea that, hey, we need to be able to drill down to a single employee and contextualize all this data like around them, right? Instead of just looking at a discrete IP address of a some piece of technology that is in the stack and kind of getting observability off of that, we're taking a whole bunch of things that might affect your Zoom call right now, Doug, right? And we're calibrating it in real time. It's a pretty hard math problem actually, but it's something specific to DEX that I think people sometimes overlook is the fact that we not only did we solve for the real-time data part of it, but we also figured out how to take all this data and actually see Doug's experience, not only through the data, but also through your own sentiment. Um, so you're taking
That
all of
sentiment
that
piece
and
I
sort of
like.
blending it up. That's something specific to DEX that does give us some additional leverage as we go into this automated era.
That's why I like when you're the one I stole it from. Is it's a feature, right? Because that Dex being that feature in there, you put it with this, and you just said it. Because we have Dex too, we can give you this, right? And
Hmm.
I love it. I absolutely agree with you there. So let's keep going. We want to get to the people's questions, and I have a few of my own. So autonomous IT. So let's get to good old autonomous IT. First of all, I want you to define it. So define autonomous IT in the way that you mean it, not the marketing version.
Yeah, well, I think
What So
it's
hold
really
on, hold on.
simple. It's
Let me finish. I have more to
okay.
it. What does a Tuesday, and we mentioned this sort of earlier, you did, what does a Tuesday look like, a Thursday look like for an admin in a generally autonomous IT world? So in 5 years, what's an IT guy going to do compared to today? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Well,
define it.
I think we've already moved past the Patch Tuesday, right? Because I think anybody who's paying attention, it's Patch Tuesday through Monday, right? It's like every day is a patch day, and the security vulnerabilities are so high, right? Everybody's in this continuous motion. But I think that's actually where this technology is going to be very important, right? Because instead of arriving to like hundreds of alerts and issues that have the routine issues will have already been detected. They'll be diagnosed and they'll be resolved, right? So like what I'm sure many of the people that are listening deal with, right, around password sync issues or disk space or performance, things that have gone wrong with specific apps or failed services, those should just be kind of written out of existence, right? Because they're very, that's it feels like Groundhog Day. And back to your first question, right? About like, okay, the IT organizations, we tend to solve the same problems over and over again, right? Like, and we cost a lot of money.
Better,
Uh,
just
and
better. We're
so
just doing
that's
it better.
yeah, exactly. So I
That's what
think
we
that the
say, right?
Tuesday
It's better.
morning, the administrator like hopefully ends up spending hopefully there's a lot less people first of all, right, that have to be involved in doing the mundane trench digging, groundhog day work, and that it allows you, by the way, that's important because I think there's going to be fewer people available in IT, right? There's just an age curve. Some of that is working against IT, as we all know, right? I think IDC has published some good stuff on this, but the remaining people that are, still in the trenches with IT, they get to spend Tuesday morning, working on enabling AI initiatives, doing things that are way more value creative than solving the same problems over and over again, planning the infrastructure that's needed. This really becoming more of like a strategic tool to the business instead of resetting printers, right?
You got
And
it. They're out talking to customers, right? They're talking to their users. Hey, how's it working for you? It's working
exactly.
great. I never hear from you. That's because it's working great. You
Right.
know,
Yeah, but I
we
guess
get back to
the
being
key thing
human.
here is most of our customers aren't even there, right? Like I said, if you they survey them through this Gartner um, digital experience kind of they put them on a 1 through 5. Most customers are in the sort of 85% are still in stage 1 or 2, right? So they're moving from the visibility to the recommendations to the human approved automations. And now I think so our most advanced customers are selectively turning on some autonomous remediation for patterns that they just see there's that this tech can clearly solve, and then there's no risk, right? But it's going to be a journey, and I think trust is growing. That's what's exciting, right? As people start to see this work, and that's one of the things we learned with you asked earlier about Unipath. You know, this is a very sexy technology, right? When you think about like not having to open a ticket, right, and being able to chat directly with the model, say, "Hey, I'm having a problem," and it can go and run the real-time data. It can look at the suggested remediations and it can try to fix it. But this is also terrifying, right? It's like giving, level 1 support potentially like catastrophic privileges, right? So I think one of the things we've learned as we're rescoping that product a little bit is we're starting with like libraries, right? Where we're like, hey, these are the things that are clearly patterns and acceptable remediations that the IT can turn on, right? And that's going to be profound also, right? Because it's like that we're seeing early indicators that it's like 30% of the trouble tickets can just is evaporate, you know, um, through these libraries. And I will tell you, the first time this happens to you and you actually see how it works, it's like kind of a miracle type thing, right? Where you're like, oh, I can't get this to work, and James Dunn, one of our channel guys in the UK, he had it. We're running it inside of ControlUp, right? And so he was freaking out because his Teams wouldn't work and it kept cutting out. And he suddenly the Unipath, we call it Resolve, popped up, and he told it, "I can't do this." And 30 seconds later, it was working.
Yeah.
It
I had a
turned off
customer
some
tell me
service
that.
that was breaking it, and he just couldn't believe it, right? He became like
Yeah.
the biggest advocate of this technology after that happened, right? But when you actually see it work and you didn't have to call a trouble ticket or the equivalent of scrubbing your toilet for 30 minutes.
It's a real stat. Fever B. It's from
Fever
Fever Bee.
bee.
It's the Gartner in communities. And thanks for, I wanted to ask you about where our customers sit. And you're always one step ahead of me. How do you even know? How do you even know that? So I love it. Thanks so much for that. I agree with you. How could I disagree? So uh, here's a hard one for you, right? So Gartner expects 40% of enterprises to demote or decommission autonomous AI agents by 2027, right? You're saying we're going to have all these agents. We do have all these agents running, by 2027 over governance gaps. And they only found after a production incident, right? They went out there, deployed a bunch of stuff that wasn't tested, and now they're having some issues. So what are we? So what are you not willing to let AI do yet? And what has to be true before a CIO lets a system remediate 20,000 endpoints with nobody approving it? My dyslexia is really awful for reading out loud.
Yeah, well, I guess that I don't think any CIO is gonna start with like, hey, let's let AI touch 20,000 endpoints.
No, but their
I will
engineers do.
say, we closed the largest deal in the history of ControlUp back in January. And the CIO actually just saw, what AI was able to do intersecting the data on like 3,000 devices. And he was so, excited about it. He had a 6 month sort of rollout path for this technology for it was a very large hospital system, right? It was going to take him 6 months to get the agents out on all the devices. When he saw what the power of our AI model intersecting the first 3,000 devices, he ended up doing it in 6 days, and
Wow.
accelerating, the rollout because he was like, it's too valuable for us not to have this on there. But I guess what I would say when we start talking about the ability for uh, the remediation actions like we were talking about before. I think every recommendation needs to be explainable. Every action needs to have a policy behind it, right? This is that library we were just talking about, right? And you need to every time you take an action or make a change, it needs to be auditable. Um, and yeah, and every everything needs to have this ability for a human to override it. So I think autonomy can't be a black box, right? Where we don't understand what it's doing or why it's doing it. It has to be kind of the opposite of that, right? Clear guardrails, good audit trails, and then you kind of like earn the trust incrementally. And ironically, this is also how the AI models work in a way, right? They sort of foundationally, this works well with how they learn recursively, if you will, right? Like so yeah, I think we I came up with this saying, and I hope it takes off. But it's like, Simon doesn't always agree with some of my marketing concepts, but it's always fun to talk to him. My 1 hour one-on-one with him went to 2 hours today. But the theory is that humans lead and agents act, right? And we don't believe in AI replacing human judgment. We believe that AI can scale human judgment, and the two things work really well together if you kind of think about it that way.
And do you think there'll come a time when that's not the case, that AI can do it all? And if so, when?
I mean, I
That's the
think that's the
billion
whole
dollar
question
question.
of artificial general intelligence, right? And do we
Yeah.
get to a place where we really are that trusting of a machine to replace human judgment? I think this is a profound question that I don't know if I'm totally prepared to answer. I mean, I guess the experts out there, and I'm sure that there's smarter people listening than me that could give their opinion, but it sounds like we're not that far off from it. But even if we're there, in this case, I think we're talking about a surface area that maybe if you brick someone's device, it's not life or death, right? But there's much bigger global macro issues that general intelligence and some of the trust we might put in it could change the humanity, if you will. I
You
recommend
bet.
everybody to watch the a couple good and most of these documentaries are out of date by the time you watch them. But I watched it for the second time this week with my son. It's about to go into college in a week, and we sat down and watched The Thinking Game, which is the Demis Hassabis. It's on Netflix and it's great, right? It just talks about how he sees this. But the other one I would say is interesting is the Apocalypse Optimist, the story of it's called the AI doc, and it's how I became an apocalyptimist. And it's like half the thing is talking about the dangers of AI and how it's going to ruin humanity, and the other half is it's no day better than today than tomorrow, right? Wish I was born right now because this is gonna I'm gonna take up the oboe and poetry and never have to
Think
work
of the
again.
oboe. I want to see you play the
So
oboe,
yeah, I
Jed.
mean, I don't know the answer to that, but I guess in the world of IT, I can see sort of a path to where we trust the models more, and they're not doing anything that's gonna kill anyone, hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like you said, it's AI is not going to, if they brick my desktop, that's not a big deal. But if they shut down the power grid, it is. Right.
Right.
So there's an order. Uh, yeah.
Order of operations,
Yeah.
magnitude,
Yeah. You got it.
risk reward
Okay.
probably is the other piece of it.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, we're about 15 minutes left. I have a question from the audience. I have one more question from you, or for you. Where's ControlUp headed? And this is the long one, I guess. So this is your chance to tell us everything that we're going to be experiencing, enjoying, and wanting, and drooling over for the next few years. So, where's ControlUp headed next? What's your bet on what's the bet you're making on the AI future? And you alluded to this, but There you go.
Yeah, well, I think we want to build the AI platform for IT operations. We think this is going to be a category unto itself. We think it's going to be a much faster growing category, more accessible category than DEX in a way. And it's a merging of a bunch of other categories, right? And so, yeah, I think every enterprise will eventually have this sort of AI operating layer sitting above every endpoint, every application, every network, every cloud service, right? And it's going to continuously observe the environment. It's going to be able to make these intelligent decisions and automate the right actions, right? And it's not going to be just about our data. It's going to be about pulling data from every available source. And so, yeah, that's the future we're building towards. And like, we have historically, this company invests incredibly in innovation. We have half the company in our what we call our product development group. It's a constant battle with our board, as you can imagine, because we have a huge amount of cost, probably more than anyone in our category. And I hope the people are on this call feel it in terms of the speed. We have a great leader now in Gotti Feldman, who built a lot of the technology. Actually, ironically, a lot of the IT operational technology, the synthetic testing, the workflows, um, the remote control. There's just a number of like the core IT operational functionality, the patching management stuff he built, and so he's now in charge of that whole group. And I think he's a visionary. I think he'll go down as somebody that has a high amount of ambition and clarity of thinking of what is possible. But most importantly, like he's motivating a team of 200 to innovate at a speed that I've never seen in my career before. We get these sort of monthly updates that are as long as your arm of the things that they're working on. And in some cases, like we're working on large enterprise customers, they're turning around features within hours. Um, this is insane. I mean, entire products are
Insane.
being built in weeks, not years. So
Yeah,
anyway, I guess the vision's really simple. We want to build, IT that increasingly runs itself where humans are still leading it, and it's not about better tools and more dashboards and more signal. It's about like turning that signal into something that is revolutionary. That's how I see it. So I like what you said about DEX is the foundation, not the finish line. And yeah, I think we're in a really unique position, ironically, coming from this kind of shadow corner story of VDI. That gave us sort of a reach because of the data set into this new era that I think
I
gives us a
agree.
competitive edge. So that's kind of how I see it.
I 100% agree. Okay, let's move to some questions from the audience. So if you have any additional questions, please post them now or within the next few minutes. Okay, so the first one from a gentleman named Nate. So as ControlUp moves from, and we've touched upon this, but answer it again. So as ControlUp moves from surfacing problems to autonomously fixing them, that's a real leap of trust for IT teams to go from, I saw this alert and I approved the fix, to the platform just did it. What's the biggest thing you're seeing separate or seeing separate customers? You're seeing separate. Oh, excuse me, if I can actually read. Separate customers who adopt the autonomy quickly from one that stay cautious. I have a horrible time reading out loud. You know that. I can't see
I
it.
think I got it, Duck. I mean, I think you know we we are trying to figure this out with right alongside our customers, right? And so we have built a pretty strong kind of design partner kind of model, right? And we're obviously I hate this word, but Gotti uses it, dog fooding this technology ourselves, right? He actually considers that part of like the life cycle of how we bring some of this technology into the market. But I mean, I think the it's kind of what I said earlier, right? The customers that we see succeeding with this, they start with the sort of high volume, low risk, reversible issues, and they set the clear policies and the guardrails and rollback pass, right? And then they expand from there. And I guess what I would tell you is that that's part of why we've seen this like explosive automated action is that is easier to do than ever right now, right? I can go to our AI assist and ask, based on the data that you have, what are the top five automated actions I should put in place, and what is the script I should use, right? And it just pumps it out, right? So
Yeah.
obviously you need to check that and make sure you agree with it, but it's pretty profound that it can give that to you, right? I mean, some of these scripts, as you guys know, are like not simple, right? They're they're complicated. So I think that's something that when I first got here, there's two guys in this company, Dennis Gearlings and Joe Stone. They were kind of like they could walk into a large organization, they could look at the trouble ticket queue, they could look at our data, they could see some dashboards, and they could then find those five scripts. It would take them like a month though. You can do this in 5 minutes. Everyone on this call could do it, right? So
That's
I
great.
think that's the starting point. Um, hopefully, hopefully that helps. And I think obviously the key for a lot of the executive kind of trust in these platforms also is to like be able to measure the outcome, right? And be able to say, hey, these tickets cost us $50 a ticket, right? And we, used to have this many, and now there's none left, right? We don't have any of those variety anymore. And I think that is one of the challenges for anyone that's trying in IT right now that's trying to sort through which tools do I bet on? How do I tell this story to the C-suite? You got to be able to measure the outcomes of these automations in terms of the cost savings.
Absolutely. Okay. This question is from Ruben. Gartner created a new acronym category earlier this year called DWOA, Digital Workspace Operations Automation. What is ControlUp's view and role here? Do you know about
Yeah.
this? Of
Yeah, so
course you do.
the DWOP, I think we all were laughing
DWA.
about that.
You know, the DWA.
DWOP, yeah, DWOP. It sounds like a 50s dance move or something. I mean, my sense about the this orchestration layer, it goes back to what we talked about a few minutes ago with this idea that um that there's this orchestration layer that's coming, right? And you need to be able to not only use your own data, but data from other tool sources through these, MCPs, be able to get other real-time data, blend it in with your own data, and then you become more adept at making you know good real-time decisions. You have a wider set of data. Now, I think that challenge for a company like ControlUp is that there's going to be companies that have 10, 20, 100 times more, you know, endpoints or footprint. So like, do we specifically want to move all the way up into this orchestration layer, right? I think there's going to be a handful of very, very large companies that will own that orchestration, platform that are publicly traded. It's the Palo Altos of the world and the CrowdStrikes and so forth. But what I think where we can operate is as a very important and powerful player that is partnering with those players and providing pulling their data and pushing our data into those platforms is how I see it. And I do think that yeah that is an important thing. And I think there's a name for it. It's not a magic quadrant, but there's like a testing quadrant that comes before the Magic Quadrant that's coming, I think, this year, maybe the end of this year, where there's maybe 50 vendors that will be in it. So it's like a pretty noisy quadrant, but it will at least start to take form, Ruben, of like who's going to play in this and what the role is they're going to have. But I guess the summary, in my opinion, is that that acronym speaks to everything we've been talking about on this call.
That's what sort of thoughts are. It almost seems like we're a DWA aggregator in a way,
Yeah.
right?
Well, I think we're going to be a very important participant in that space.
Yeah, I love it.
But we may not
Great
be
question.
we're not maybe the one that is like, if there's five or six that end up in the right quadrant, we're going to be sort of probably more of a participant, I would say, with a really strong, edge. When you think about like the players in cloud services, like Datadog owns that or whatever, right? We have a very profound insight on the edge, VDI, DAS, physical devices, SaaS applications, right? So like our telemetry there will be merged with other telemetry in these orchestration platforms, is how I see it.
I love it. I love it. And the last question is also from Ruben, who always brings a little bit of human in everything. So, and I love this question. What is the role of AI in your daily business and personal family life?
Yeah, well, I've been it's an interesting question. I started using Chat GPT right away, back in November. And the problem I have is that we've realized, obviously, with 200 people doing development every day, that Claude is a leader there, right? And so one of the challenge we got everybody in the whole company Claude, which I'm sure you're enjoying the use of it, Doug. It seems like you used it to put some of these questions together. Um, but the problem I'm experiencing, and maybe somebody has an answer, is that it's actually very hard contextually for me to move off of OpenAI to Claude because it is absolutely like stunning how contextually rich OpenAI understands what I'm uh, trying to do at ControlUp. And so how I use it, I'm in it all day long, right? And I have all of these scheduled things that it's doing, and I just downloaded a bunch of new connectors and so forth. I've given it, pretty carte blanche access to uh, all the materials and artifacts that run this business. And so, whether it's looking at acquisitions, whether it's looking at hiring employees, I'm using it, and it's giving me profound contextually rich insights. I mean, I'm staring at my OpenAI screen right now. I have, a daily brief, a competitor update, all things that are kind of automated, my schedule for the day with all kinds of detail of like prepping me for it. So that's kind of how I use it personally. I mean professionally. Uh, Personally, I love to cook. And I have the New York Times app on my phone. And every Sunday, I have my entire family come over. It's about 12 people in my extended family that live near me. I have a big round table, and I built a really gourmet kitchen. And I used to own a restaurant, so I just love to cook. And so every Sunday, I come up with what is probably a restaurant quality meal. I'm sure, many of you, cook Thanksgiving dinner or whatever. Imagine a Thanksgiving dinner every Sunday, like multi-course, for 10 or 15 people at your house. And so I use AI to help me craft the menu, source the ingredients, get the recipes. And what I found is the New York Times app I have is not as useful as it used to be. Actually, the recipes I get from OpenAI are are as good or better than anything else out there. So this is how I use it probably. But I also, just like I'm sure all of you are doing, is I use it to ask questions, and I think I get better answers at times. My son and I were talking about, he's going the one that's going to college. We had a dinner last night at a restaurant, and we were talking about, is the stock market gonna pop? And I said, well, have you ever heard of the October surprise? And he Googles it, and he gets one answer. And I said, oh, that answer is the very political answer, right? It's about like elections, and there's typically this October surprise. So then we asked ChatGPT, because he said, oh, let's ask ChatGPT. So he typed it in, asked ChatGPT, and it gave him a much more thorough answer. That it included the political one, but it also talked about how the stock market, the biggest crashes have always happened in October, right? And so we connected the dots of like, okay, well, if the AI bubble is going to pop, maybe it's going to happen in October, right? Like for an 18-year-old kid, this was kind of an interesting moment, right? Where he saw the difference between the Google answer and the OpenAI answer. It was actually interesting for me too, right? And I think we all have to question every answer we get, but it was interesting to see the difference.
That's very interesting. I like to pit ChatGPT against Claude. Yeah, I like Claude's answers a little bit better, but it's interesting how you the kind things you said about OpenAI. I've sort of in my world consider OpenAI like MySpace. It started it
Well,
all
and
out and fizzled out.
maybe I'm a dinosaur, but the problem is I even tried to do what people said, which is like, hey, ask this prompt and it'll give you the context, then upload that into Claude. It just didn't work. And
Oh,
I will say OpenAI has gotten much better in the last like 90 days than it was. I
yeah,
mean, it's like I was able to produce board deck slides this because our guy that does all our design work was in a workshop and he couldn't help me. So by, I was forced into a corner to try to create some slides, which 100 days ago on OpenAI was a joke. Now I
yeah,
had my board
yeah,
asking me, can you show me how you did this in OpenAI? Because they were so good. I showed them like, hey, I gave them this, it gave me that, and they were like shocked.
yeah.
So
Yeah, yeah. Very interesting. I haven't I played with a little bit, but I have the big Claude. So I use that in both work and personal. So OpenAI I pay for, but the cheap one. And I talk to it and berate it a lot and have some good conversations.
yeah, I
I like
have a
to chat.
10-year-old daughter who, when we're bored in the car, we've named the OpenAI voice agent the captain. And so
Cool.
we have these like, and it is amazing the extra the how human it is, right? Like how it laughs and
Yeah.
it's
Stutter
very
takes a
interesting. She
breath. It
loves
takes
it.
a breath. It takes a breath. You hear,
Exactly.
I named mine Freddie. And for a while, it called me Crockpot Jones. So
Yeah, it's
which
pretty
is
amazing. It
always
knows her, it knows
always
my
funny.
10-year-old's voice, it knows what she's into, and she loves it because it knows that she's a soccer player and she,
That's cool.
loves Taylor Swift. And so, yeah, every time she checks in with it, it has building a relationship with her, which is pretty funny to watch.
Hey Jed, we're over time. I thank you for your time. I know you're a busy guy, and you're probably 4 minutes late to something. If you don't mind giving us a 30-minute summary or a 30-minute, you have the last word. 30-minute, 30-second summary, or just the last words. And from me, thank you so much. Thanks everyone for joining. I'll get this post online if you want to share with a friend. If you ever have any questions, please join the community or reach out to one of your ControlUp folks, or just come to me. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm also in the community and db@controlup.com. And I'm happy to help you. Jed, you have the last word.
Yeah, I mean, I just at the end, we talked a lot about AI, but at the end of the day, it's still about human beings and community. And I believe that it's about stories and about how you make people feel, and that's the things we will be remembered for in our lives is the friendships and the real human connection. So that's what this community is about, and yeah, hopefully we'll all see each other somewhere in this world face to face at some point. But like you, Doug, I'm on LinkedIn and I'm happy to carry the relationship on digitally with any of you that I am not connected with. But I just want to say thank you for tuning in and listening to these two guys pontificate on what we think is going on, and thank you for being part of the journey with us.
You should really take notes and come back in a year and see where we're right and where we're wrong. But
Plenty wrong, I'm sure, but hopefully
it's a
directionally
wild
correct.
it's directionally correct. It's a wild west out there. It's Greenberg used to always say it's a great time to be in IT, and damn it, it's a great time to be in IT. So Steve's always right.
Yep.
Thank you, Jed. Thank you all for joining. Have a wonderful day.
Be well. Thanks.
Be well.